Inequities in school funding continue to impact the most vulnerable students in the state. That's according to a new report by the New York State Association of School Business Officials. Students with disabilities in the lowest need school districts have ELA and math proficiency rates that are more than 6 times higher than students with disabilities in the highest need school districts. It's kind of logical, but what do we do about it? With me now to talk more about this is Michael Borges, Executive Director of the Association. Thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you for having me.
So we should sort of set the stage here by saying that the state is federally mandated to provide services, basically equal services to the degree that it's possible to kids with disabilities. And we're more generous than some other states, and so people come here and seek out our services, which is part of the reason why it's so expensive. Education is so expensive in New York.
Yes, I mean, this report is part of a 3-part series. I was on the show, what, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, talking about...
We're going to put a plaque on your chair. The Michael Borges chair.
Michael Borges chair, yes. So, we were talking about the rise in poverty, right? So this is about a series of reports. This is the second of 3, talking about the changing demographics in our student population. So we talked about poverty, growth in poverty. Now we're talking about a growth in special needs students, and our last report will talk about the growth of English language learners. So they're all classified what we call high need students.
Yeah, but they're also all interconnected. I mean,
and
those
yes,
populations...
and they all are interconnected. They overlap in many ways, but what it points out to, and the main driver behind this, is that the high need students, the ones that cost the most, and this report shows how they can cost twice as much, 2.5 times on average, than general needs student, that they are costing more to educate, and yet the state has yet to make changes to the foundation aid formula, has yet to fund the foundation aid formula in full, and so we need more money to do that. I mean, I know people talk about ECB came out with their $2 billion proposal.
Yeah, the Regents just today.
And the Regents did today. There's a reason for that. We've documented, the data shows that all these high need populations are increasing, and the cost to educate these high need students are increasing.
Yeah, I think Regents is at 1.6. Is that correct?
Yeah,
1.6 billion, someplace in there.
Someplace like that.
All right. So let's also say that the overarching message of these 3 reports, and I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest that the third one is fairly similar, the same, which is foundation aid, need more money, etc. But there are details in each of them that are really interesting. One that I found fascinating and troubling is that some inner city areas, now they have a higher concentration of poverty, a higher concentration of English as a second language kids, but also a higher concentration of lead.
Yeah, I mean, our report doesn't go into that.
You do mention it briefly.
Yeah, we do mention it, yeah, but I mean, there are scientific studies that show that lead contamination, whether it's lead paint or other kind of lead, can lead to learning disabilities. So, which may explain, again, I'm not a scientist, which may explain the higher rates of disabilities and special needs in urban areas where you see higher concentrations of lead. Hence, the disproportionate, number of students in those areas that have special needs.
Well, and also, I mean, special education spending in the lowest need districts is $43,000 and change per pupil. Spending in the highest needs districts is $25,000 and change.
So that, and it crystallizes for everybody, I think, where you see wealthy districts spending twice as much money on special needs, whereas poorer urban school districts like the Schenectadys and the Albanys and the Uticas,
though they have a higher percentage of a population.
And not only do they have a higher population, but they're spending less, and again, that just kind of reemphasizes why the foundation aid formula needs to be updated, why the weighting for special needs and English language learners needs to be increased so that they drive more money to these high need school districts with these larger populations of special needs students.
But this is a really touchy subject, this question of educating special needs kids. I mean, and also you demonstrate in your report that special needs, it's kind of a broad category, really.
Yeah,
I mean, you've got kids who have physical special needs, then you have kids who have educational, mental special needs, if you will, challenges in whatever education, but they're physically fine, or maybe mental health. So you have a whole sort of disparate group of people that all get lumped in together, but they don't all need the same thing.
Oh, no. I mean, what was really interesting was the doubling in the number of kids with autism. Now, that could be a combination of just better diagnosis, process.
Well, that's a whole nother show.
I mean, that's a whole other show. Yeah, but yes, I mean, we have a bill actually that would help school districts deal with the unexpected arrival of a high needs student with disabilities. So if you have a small rural school district, with a $25 million budget, and a kid with, or student with high autism or a certain severe disability moves into your district mid-year, you could see a $200,000 hole blown in your budget.
Right.
Because that particular kid needs that much special.
Well, but again, not all states are as generous as New York.
No, I mean, the state education department came out with a report, I don't know, like 3-4 years ago now, which documented I think 200 different examples of where our special needs regulations exceed the federal regulations. Right. So, but that's just a decision that our policymakers have made, and the school districts have to live with that.
Don't you also have certain anomalies? And again, down in the Hudson Valley, you have some high Orthodox Jewish populations that also have a higher percentage of special needs kids, which drives the cost up in that district where they're already
Correct.
Fighting against a lot of different financial problems.
That's a whole nother
I know. I don't want to get into Ramapo craziness, but I'm just saying that you have some anomaly outlier districts that have some special situations, such as sort of what you're saying, if you have a kid who comes in the middle of the year, and then what do you do?
Right.
And I don't think that the state is really accounting for that.
No, I mean that was one of the issues that came up, 2 years ago when we had this large influx of unaccompanied minors on Long Island and other parts of the state. It really socked those school districts with all these unexpected costs that they weren't prepared for. And our budgets are adopted in May, and so if something happens in September or November, we are stuck holding the bag until the following year when we get reimbursed. So
yes, but you have to be careful too, because if you're trying to skirt the regulations, you're going to get slapped, as the state attorney general
I'm not
did,
defending
if I
anybody who
correctly.
skirts the regulations,
Right.
but the bottom line is that sometimes the state needs to step in and recognize that students, high need students, that population is growing, that they can come beginning of the year, mid-year, whenever, and school districts are not sometimes, their budgets don't allow them to reflect these added costs in the time that it happens, which is why they need to provide extra, whether it's a reserve for extra extraordinary needs, so that way school districts can save money for when these things happen, or they need to reimburse school districts in the same year in which these expenses occur, instead of being reimbursed in the following year.
So this, before we run out of time, I do want to address, and I'm probably going to keep bringing this up, and so forgive me that I sound like a broken record when everybody comes in to have a conversation with me. Everyone's making a lot of logical arguments. I mean, we just talked to AARP, for example, that's looking for a tax credit for unpaid caregivers.
Bill Ferris was here?
Right.
Yeah.
He wasn't here, but actually Beth Finkel was here. But what I'm saying is, she makes an argument about the spending power of people of a certain age, et cetera. We need to help them so they don't move. But you're making a very emotional and also logical argument about the numbers are the numbers. The data bears out.
The data doesn't lie, yeah.
Okay, but the reality is that the data doesn't lie. Neither do the numbers of the state's fiscal situation. And we're going into the year with close to a $5 billion deficit. And the reality is now, just today, we talked to Senator DeFrancisco, and Deputy Majority Leader of the Senate, and he said it's going to be a, quote, horrible budget year. That said, he doesn't see education as getting cut. But there's a difference between getting cut and getting more funding.
Right. Right. Well, again, we're budget people too. My members are the budget folks at school districts and at BOCES. We understand the fiscal realities that we're facing, but it's our job to be aspirational, to ask for what is necessary and what is needed based on the data. And the data doesn't lie. The data pretty much demonstrates that there are great disparities in funding, and that the high-need school districts are getting shortchanged, and they need more assistance.
So part 3 comes out when?
In the next 2 weeks. We'll talk about English language learners.
So we'll see you again.
So reserve my seat for me.
We will indeed. We'll keep it warm. Thank you so much for your time.